All right, welcome back, everybody, to the Blueprint on How to Turn Goals into Achievement podcast for students. I am your host, Andres Ruiz, motivational speaker, coach. And today we have a very special guest, somebody that I've been following that is doing a lot of good for the community. And I just really admires a lot of the things that this man has done. Just seeing some of the things that he's doing with the youth and then also just like, young adults. And his name is Dustin Williams, and he is the Pima County School Superintendent. So welcome to the show, Dustin. How are you feeling today?
Andres, feeling really good. Thank you for having me, and thank you for all your listeners and viewers.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. So I always like to start the interview just with a question for the person that I'm interviewing to just kind of brag about themselves a little bit. So Dustin, I want to start off with like, what would you say is your superpower?
Oh man, that's a good question. Putting everyone on the spot. Well, I have a nickname, it's Super D. I get that a little bit sometimes. Probably just my charisma and my caringness, and my daddy powers.
Nice. Yeah, those are great. Yeah, and I think charisma has a lot of importance when it comes to being able to impact people's lives. You know, just your energy. When the way you show up is the way that you're going to influence people. You're the way you're going to impact people. So I can definitely see that you do have a lot of charisma. You do have a lot of energy when you're out there in the community. So I definitely believe that that's extremely important. And then also caring, like you said, and then also, with, being a dad, that's something huge. So thank you for sharing that. I appreciate it. But
Thank
so
you.
just kind of to get things started, like in regards to being a Pima County school superintendent, like how did that get started? Like what inspired you to get into this type of role?
Yeah, so this rule is it's an elected official. It's elected every 4 years. I got elected in 2016 by the grace of the constituents of Pima County, and they reelected me in 2020. We go again in 2024, so we're excited. But to get to this path, like how do you become there? What got me to be the elected Pima County School Superintendent for education across this county, and one of the 15 in the state. There's 15 of us.
Wow.
And we're every 4 years. Really, my passion and everything that drove me started on the field of coaching girls softball. I was an only child till I was about 11. I think it was middle school, 7th grade then. And I finally had 2 sisters. My mom got pregnant and the new dad and new life. And I was no longer an only child. So I had friends that were in the house all the time now. It was great. And my imaginary friends were these little people. And as they grew, they were really just my little prides and joys. And I started putting them in softball. And I was that coach at 18, right out of my senior year, like right when I graduated. And I just did that for a while. And then it's really where I found my passion. I knew I went into education, became certified elementary school teacher, administrator I became principal of a high school, did my middle school principalship at a middle school. But that whole educational arena all got fused and all got started throwing softballs and hitting home runs on the grass of Frontier Little League for girls softball. That's what got me here.
That's awesome. So it sounds like you found like your passion and your purpose like at a very early age, especially like 18, just to
so that's a great point, Andreas, because passion is where you'll find your success.
Okay.
I kind of ran into coaching. I tried a whole bunch of other stuff before I became a elementary teacher. Matter of fact, I didn't get certified into college until I graduated in the early 2000s. So I graduated in 1992. I floated around for about 6-7 years, just doing random weird stuff with really no purpose, until I found out that the common thing that I was always doing was coaching. And I was a winning coach. And that, like we talked about, that charisma and that, that passion and that care, that same thing is on the field, and super competitive. And so when I figured out like this is as happy as I am, I knew that I had to go into a profession that was going to drive it. So I had to go back to college, go do a whole bunch of do a bunch of credits that I failed miserably in. But it all made sense then. College was like, oh, okay, this is why I'm here now. Instead of trying to be an accountant that I was trying to force, I knew I had a purpose. And so it was a late start, but it was the passion that drove me here.
That's awesome. Thank you for sharing that. And I think there's a lot of power there. Everything that you just talked about, and how like after after high school, you kind of just for 6-7 years, you really didn't have like a path of where you wanted to go. And I do see that a lot in the youth, because I do a lot of speaking for high schools and colleges, and that's something that comes up a lot, where kids, they just don't know what their purpose is, where they're going in life. Like for the students out there, maybe young adults who are listening to this, like what would you say are some tips that you could give those people to help them with finding that passion or that purpose? Could you share something with us, please?
Yeah, absolutely. The youth especially, we have these discussions, but I find now more and more into this type of role, just adults, period, even 40-year-old adults, they'll come to me and be like, hey, what got you, and how did, why, what am I supposed to do with my life? You know, the most important thing to do is to know that timing is of the essence. You only get so much time here on this beautiful planet that God has given us.
Yeah.
You got to seize the moment, and you got to think about, am I happy in what I'm doing? If you're happy in what you're doing and you're good at it, then that's really, really important. Life isn't all about making a ton of money and being the superstar sport athlete, a rock star on the stage, or actor on the screen, or this highly acclaimed politician, even though I'm in politics. I mean, it really has nothing to do with it. The key is to find out, like, well, what are you happy in your day-to-day life? And you wake up in the morning, are you smiling? And are you saying, hey, I like this? Hey, believe me, I have times in this gig where I like, it's not great for a reason. All right.
Yeah.
Or it's not great. I'm probably, but I love what I do. I like it because I'm still surrounded by kids. I know that the purpose of what I'm doing in this job is still the backbone of what I love doing, which was, making people better through education. And so that purpose for me is what drove me to put me in my spot. Before, I was kind of lost. I was kind of an electrician. I was a real estate agent. I sold cars with Mr. Jim Click. I went back into the mortgage field and sold mortgage loans, all for these types of things. But really, I wake up and just go. There's really no like end game as to what am I going to do? Like, do I really love it? And I found myself constantly going back to the field. And then that's when I looked around at myself in my younger 20s, and I was like, so this is what made me happy. So knowing what makes you happy is the first thing to making sure that that's the profession or what you're doing. If you're in your job right now and you hate your life and it's not good and it's not fun, then you need to find out, what are you doing in your life that is supplanting that fun? And then if you have found this other thing that you really enjoy, well, maybe that's what it is. And maybe it's carpentry, and somehow you're really into carpentry, but here you are in this role. And then you got to find out, does it make sense economically for you in your business state? And so finding it early is important, because you don't need a lot of money in the beginning. You shouldn't need a ton of money as you get older, but as you get older, more things come into your life: car payments, mortgages, debt, and those types of things. When you get into that, your balance changes. So sometimes the things that you love might not give you the money that you need to support what you already have in place, which are economic needs that you really can't get out of quickly. But when you're your younger ages or young adults, you shouldn't be tied to that stuff too quickly, so that you can start to explore and move around.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, there's a lot of golden nuggets right there that you just dropped for the younger ones, because I hear that often, I just don't know what I want to do. I don't know what to do. But then they don't ask themselves these questions. And I think that that was very wise of you to share, asking yourself the question, do I love it? There's a lot of importance there. Like, if you love what you do, then, it's like that whole saying of you won't work another day. But it's like, if you're just waking up and just going throughout the day, then you're going to be miserable and you're going to be unhappy. And so, I mean, there's definitely a lot of wisdom there. So I know that for you, you feel like, you're doing, and you are doing a lot of great stuff for the community. One thing that I did see on social media that was really great was this BIP program that for basketball. I mean, that really was very powerful to see you doing this for these young adults who are, I believe, in the adult detention. I believe.
Yeah.
So
Adult jail.
yeah. So just and I think that what I love about what you're doing is you're giving these young men or young women. I don't know if there's women or men, but I know that you're giving them a sense of hope and that you're there to help them, because maybe they didn't have a vision, maybe they didn't have a passion, they didn't know where they were going, and then they ended up going the wrong way. And so I feel like there's something there where you're providing these young people some possibility. Tell us a little bit about that program and how did that get started?
Yeah, that's a great question. So when you become the elected superintendent, you have your life of responsibilities has quadrupled to the top as much as you could imagine it. It's 365 days a year. You're looking over 150,000 kids in Pima County. That's what's on your mind. You're looking at like 300 schools. We don't have the power over those schools, but we work in some fashion with all the schools, whether it's district, whether it's charter, private, and the homeschool community. We work with all of them, or we facilitate opportunities. But one school you inherit, and it is all of yours, and it's called the Accommodation School District. So by law, with TUSD and AmFine, everyone, we give them their money. We manage $2 billion with a B dollars a year here in this office. We do all the bonds and overrides, all the governing board elections, but we don't have authority on these schools. But one we do, and that school is called the Accommodation School District. It's located in the Juvenile Detention Center on Ajo, which is down there by Keno Sports Park, or you go about 7 minutes down west on Silver Lake by a mountain, there's the jail. So I have two populations. I have my juveniles at the Juvenile Detention Center, but I also have some juveniles about 14 to 22 in there, 14 to 18, and then some young adults, 18 to 22 at the jail side. And so those became my new softball players. Those my new team. Those were my kids. I was the superintendent of that school. Those are my principals, my teachers there, everything. And so look where the passion now meets the job. So without that passion, would another superintendent care as much about those kids? I don't know. I'm not going to say they wouldn't, because that would be unfair to another superintendent. But I can tell you that a superintendent that has that passion and care for those kids going in, it's natural. It's a natural thing. So you're going in and you're talking to, I'm just going to use Andres Ruiz here because it's his show. I'm talking to Andres, and one thing that we've already spoken about is finding your direction or finding your path. That's really, really difficult to do when you limit yourself with opportunity. And the way you, number one, can limit yourself the most is to be incarcerated. Yeah. Once you're incarcerated, you have no options. You have nothing. You literally barely have the underwear that they sometimes provide in the jail. Yeah. So they barely provide underwear and essentials to these kids. Well, anyways, there's behaviors in there, and to have behaviors, it's like a level system, 1, 2, 3, and 4. And when I got there, the levels they weren't great. And my principal at the jail side said, got to figure out a way to improve these behaviors. And we said, well, what if we did this? What if the students kept their levels at a 3 or 4? And mind you, this is in jail. You could challenge me in basketball. And we would go to the court that's inside the juvenile detention center. You could only shoot a 3-pointer in a certain way because you go too high, it hits a metal fence. And of course, there's no net. And anyone that plays basketball knows that the swoosh on a net is part of the game and you don't hear that. Anyways, we started that program. That program started with one kid, 1-on-1. And then the program went to 3-on-3. And then it went on to 5-on-5.
Wow.
And then my communication director, Matt Stamp, was like, what are you doing every Thursday on the third week? Where are you going? He was like, I want to play.
Oh,
so
cool.
now he jumps in with me, and now the court's packed.
Wow.
And what we have learned is for 1 minute, when I look around and we're playing basketball, we're no longer incarcerated. The fences are gone, the hard concrete is gone, and you feel as if you're on that playground. And those kids are kids again. And then the conversations really start, the really personal conversations. Yo, Mr. Williams, or yo, Mr. Dustin, I got to get out of here. Or what am I going to do? And then we just parlay it into another program, Pima Cycle Breaker, that we just invented, which is we'll start putting them in another program, which is a success path of life. Put them in education, we'll put them in a job, and then we'll put them in some sort of support service, which is counseling, which is mentorship. It could be help with probation fees or so forth. And as long as they're putting in the work, we'll help them maintain that lifestyle so that we get them out of that jail. And then we get them in a path that's, number one, positive and good for their life first.
Wow.
And then number two, develop a really good community partner. So the BIP, which is the basketball incentive program, has parlayed so many different things. But mainly what it's really done is it has strengthened a relationship. So, now when I'm in there regularly, they'll personally come up and say, the only thing I look forward to sometimes is this program. Like, this is what really made me want to actually, think twice about coming back at the CO, or think twice about doing my studies better so that I can earn my level 3, my level 4 quicker, and so forth. So it's all about the carrot, right? In life, you want to do something to get something back and do something good. It's really hard because you can't, buy sandwiches or do food or give them certain things because it's just against policy. Can't give them certain articles of clothing or devices or so forth. So the little basketball incentive program has really turned into a heart of joy for a lot of people. And it's neat. So, I can't tell you how many times I watch the kids school me on the basketball court, just saying to myself, God, we could be putting these talents on the court. A high school coach would be eating this person up.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's girls and boys.
Wow, that's amazing, man. And thank you for sharing that. I could feel your emotion as you were describing when you were talking about how it was just like there was nothing but just the court. It was just, I could feel the emotion as you were speaking about that. And I could actually visualize you there and the kids there too. And I'd really appreciate you sharing all of this, because that for these kids, you're probably the first positive role model that they've ever met, and man, just imagine if all these kids who are out there just right now, they're about to make a mistake, they're about to do something wrong, and they're going to end up there because they don't have that positive role model, like somebody like yourself, and it's a big responsibility. And, I really want to acknowledge you for you being willing to take on this role, because that responsibility, not a lot of people can handle that. And right now, I think that's what we are having challenges with, is just the lack of responsibility that men are taking for these young men in our community. I have a friend of mine who does work with youth, and he talks about how the pipeline from high school to the jail is growing more and more. And one of the biggest reasons why is because there's no male role model there to help them. Tell us a little bit about just the importance of that, just having that male role model in your life, and if you yourself had a male role model that, helped you to just become the man that you are today. Tell us about that.
Yeah, I'm gonna give first kudos to the staff that I have, or just my entire organization, but my staff at the accommodation district. These are the teachers, the counselors, the intake, the GED specialists. We all share this same vision of care for these kids. And we do all scratch our head and know that when we have them, we know it's protected, they're going to get the care. But we all know that there was a journey and a road for why they are here with us. And, I plead right now on your podcast to the community, the steps can be taken much earlier to ensure that the students don't make it to my school. I walk around and we've been in literally hundreds of schools, and I tell the kids, stay in school, do your education. When I go to my school, I tell the kids, I don't want you in my school anymore. Like, don't come back here. Like, it's so odd, but the only reason is, of course, I don't want them incarcerated again. And that recidivism rate, that school to prison pipeline that we hear about, which is a absolute fact. Role models are the key to success. Whether it's a male role model or it's a female role model, in my opinion, you need an entity or some human that is going to be putting in the work that person not only is going to trust, or the student or that person in their life, they're going to trust them, but they're also going to kind of trust them so much they're going to do as they lead. So when they're mentoring them and they're on the verge of making that decision of, is this good or it's bad? A really good mentor has ingrained in that person's mind the difference of right and wrong. And hopefully the skill sets and strategies that the mentee has learned, whether it be a child or a young adult, is going to just know naturally, hey, I was grown up learning that that's not what I do. And I'm going to somehow walk away from it. Whether I know how to just use an excuse like, I got to make a quick phone call, be right back, and never come back. Or I got to use the restroom real quick, walk away and never come back. Or I can kind of see that isn't the friend group I really need to be around, because it always puts me in a pressure point system or degrades me in a way of manipulate. There's something weird. I'm gonna go kind of maybe move over to this group, and maybe they don't like you, maybe they say bad things, but you have found that there's a different mentor system in this other group where you're just not quite getting in trouble, or the decision making. So for me, in my life, it was my grandfather. My grandfather, I was raised by my grandparents at a young age, from the ages of about 4 to about third grade or fourth grade, right in there. So about 9, from about 4 to 9, maybe 4 to 10. And then before that, I was with my grandparents off and on. My mom and dad had divorced at a very young age. I was 2, right around in that. And then, for whatever reason, there was some turmoil, and I ended up living with my grandparents. So my grandfather was kind of my father since at that point of, and then I just watched him, and he was my grandma, of course, too, super strong lady. There's always a strong female behind a strong male. Let me tell you that right now. You've got to know that. And so, but my mentor and where we went through in life was my grandfather. And then from that point on, I always had that person where I knew I knew when I was doing something bad, if I did something bad, I knew I was going to be on my grandfather's, excuse my French, S list. I'd be like, oh no, I'm on the S list. And I was a little knucklehead, let me tell you, in high school. So you'll know, my friends will always tell you, they're always there, they see me as a superintendent. They're always like, huh? But they get it. They know I was, my leadership skills at a young age. I was always kind of a go-getter and bring everyone together. Those are my my grandfather bring me together and teach me a whole bunch of stuff about right and wrong.
Good stuff. Thank you for sharing that. I really appreciate it, Dustin. And I just want to thank you for sharing like all your wisdom today. And you just really, all the stories that you shared were really powerful. And I'm sure that, a lot of people got, just a lot of it. I mean, I was taking notes right here for sure, because I really just enjoyed everything that you talked about today. But just for the people that are listening, if they want to get, help, or they want to get involved with the community, whether it's through volunteering or maybe like some of the services that you provide, how can people reach out to you? And if there's any like events or any type of help that's out there that you provide, if you would like to share it for the audience to, be able to hear about what's going on.
Yeah, for the audience out there, number one, keep doing good stuff if you're doing good things. That's my message to you. Don't let anyone negative tell you can't do anything. Don't let anybody put you down. Don't believe in naysayers, and definitely stay away from haters.
Oh yeah.
But for me, if you want to get involved, or you have ideas, or you just want some direction, I'm here to help. I know a lot of people in this community. I know, like, Mr. Ruiz just said, there's some wisdom, in here. There is. Tap into it. I know some stuff. Schools.pima.gov. Schools.pima.gov, or Dustin.williams@pima.gov. That is it. Dustin.williams@pima.gov. You can email me directly, even if it doesn't have anything to do with schools. And you're like, I want to go get into the concrete industry. That's a trade, so we work with the trade partners. We work with Tucson Chamber of Business. We work with all the schools. We work with the nonprofits. We hear all these things, like what's going on. We might not have the solution, but we will point you in the right direction. Our mission statement is leadership, service, and collaboration. So we can collaborate, or we can provide a service, or we can lend some leadership skills, or we can partner on something, or you want to get involved. Schools.pima.gov, and I will make the best effort to put a connection together. And believe me, we can find anybody in this world. As Andreas' passion came through, he found me on Facebook and said, hey, on Messenger. That's how he found me. So you know what? That brought this connection. So if I can help anyone out there in the community, I'm more than happy to do it.
Awesome. Thank you, Dustin. I appreciate you for taking the time to be on my show today, and also just for everything you do, man. I really, really appreciate. I can hear your heart just speaking when you're sharing these stories. So thank you for sharing all this information, and thank you, the audience, for watching. I appreciate you, and we will be seeing you on the next episode of the Blueprint on how to turn goals into achievement. Have a great one. Peace. Bye.